Hey, MCE crew, the working poor have had their savings wiped out. Let's talk about how to prevent that from happening to you. Or if it has happened, let's talk about how to get back in front of that situation so that you can achieve financial independence. Okay? Now, I just got off of the tractor, hopefully for the last time this year. So I know I look a little rough, but it's okay. Hard work never hurt anybody. All right, guys. So look, the working poor, people who are out there and they're doing what they've got to do. Okay. These are not lazy people. These are just people that don't make a lot of money for whatever reason. And they're getting hit very hard. Now, you may not be among that number. You may make more than the working poor. You may have a very healthy wage or salary that allows you to avoid this situation. However, you need to pay attention to how to maintain or achieve financial independence, because what's going on in this nation, in this world today, can wipe you out, as we've seen with these individuals that we're going to read about here. Okay, so let's get to it. Working poor still use food banks, as millions had their savings wiped out during the crisis of last year. Now, even with the stimulus, because look, the stimulus, let's just be honest about it, okay? It really wasn't a tremendous amount of money, especially when you take into account inflation. So as I always say, if you got a family of 4, man, come on, gotta eat. Trip to the grocery store for my family of 2 is pretty damned expensive these days, okay? So I can only imagine if you have kids. 18 months since the virus pandemic began, hunger and food insecurity continue to plague millions of households across the country. Now, if you are just trying to survive, okay, and that's what you're trying to do, if you're, having trouble affording food, I don't care what you are, where you come from, who you sleep with, we all need to eat, okay? So these individuals are having trouble with that basic survival piece of food, all right? Affording it. And when your mind is locked in to survival, then you tend not to think about the future. You think about now. And if you don't think about the future, then you're usually not thinking about things like financial independence, okay? So if you're not in this situation, take heed in order to avoid ever being here, lest you get into a mode where, you're just on a little hamster wheel, okay? So let's continue on with this. Where were we? Okay. Some of these folks have had their life savings drained with no financial safety net for the next crisis. Compound food insecurity and deterioration of financial conditions of households, and it appears the working poor have barely recovered from the pandemic shutdown and downturn. What's likely to happen is the Biden administration will continue handing out free money to these folks to prevent social upheaval. That's right, because when you can't eat, man, you take to the streets. Okay, remember old Marie Antoinette? Let them eat cake. You know what happened to her? Well, read about it. Heads rolled, let's just say that. An example of this was when Biden increased SNAP, that's the food stamp program, by a quarter a few months ago. Okay, come on. First, let's talk about food banks in their current state. Katie Fitzgerald, COO of Feeding America, a nonprofit organization that oversees a nationwide network of 200 food banks feeding more than 46 million people, told AP News, despite the decreasing numbers of households reliant on food banks, today's numbers remain 55% above pre-pandemic levels. She says, we're worried. Food insecurity could increase all over again if too many shoes drop. So she's saying, look, we could go above this 55% number reliant on this food bank, the food banks in general. More inflation would drive people to that. Higher unemployment. Now, the unemployment rate's in a weird place because millions of people are leaving their jobs voluntarily. And you know why? Because they don't want to be mandated to take a certain medication. My body, my choice, right? So I'm very sensitive to this because there was a time when, we always had something to eat when I was coming up, but it wasn't always what we wanted. Okay, food insecurity is real for people who are at or below the poverty line with a lot of kids. Now, how can you avoid this? Well, let's start out with, again, purchasing assets. But what shouldn't you be out there doing at this time? First of all, screw materialism, okay? Now, I'm not a very materialistic person, as you probably can tell. But cars, come on. Look, I drive how old is that car? I drive an 11-year-old Volvo.
What kind of black man drives a Volvo?
A black man that appreciates safety.
Okay, so take the money. The Volvo's been paid for many years. Take the money, and instead of putting it into something that's going to lose value, put it over into appreciating assets. And I don't want to hear, well, you know what? I can't afford Google or I can't afford Amazon. You can afford any stock, as long as you do your due diligence. I'm not telling you to buy those stocks, but you can afford any stock on the S&P 500 because certain brokers, I think I did a video with the broker, but more and more are offering fractional shares, which means you can go in for as little as $5 and purchase a fractional share of any stock out there. You've got $5. So you can make that happen. You can, especially if your employer is matching, and we're going to do a more expansive video on 401ks. If your employer is matching, you cannot afford not to invest in your 401k. Okay, but remember, the 401k says you get the tax break now, lowers your taxable income, but you will pay taxes in the future when taxes are most likely to be higher. Okay, so it's a give and take there. But if your employer is matching, it's quite probable that that free money that you're getting in the match will be able to offset taxation, at least somewhat. Now, keep in mind, that money's not liquid until you get 59 and a half. And you definitely don't want to touch it before then, because if you do, you're going to compound your financial issues, because the tax man is going to say, we're going to hit you with a 10% penalty and we're going to tax you at your current rate. All right. So remember, locking that money up in a qualified plan like a 401k means that it's not liquid. But if you want something that's liquid and you want it to grow because you've got to get that money working for you, then take a look at an insurance policy, a permanent life insurance policy that's going to give you tax-free growth. You can borrow against it tax-free. It's your money, okay? And it will not be subject to taxation at the higher rate in the beginning. Most importantly, it's liquid. You can use it for whatever you want. And you do not have to be a certain age to qualify. Oh, and you also get the benefit, the death benefit, to enrich your family once you are no longer a part of this world. So there are things out there that you really need to start thinking about. Forget the latest pair of Louis, who's the guy's name with the red shoes? I don't even know, okay? I'm not even into fashion like that. So don't trust me on telling you what the hottest fashions are. I couldn't do it. Stop trying to follow these stars. I saw Beyonce and Jay-Z have a new Tiffany commercial. God bless them. They have built an empire, and that is so inspirational. But if you go out there and you try to buy that pendant that's on Beyonce's neck, that's going to set you back. That thing has to be like $100,000, okay? So don't try to follow these stars. Do you? And understand that what you are trying to achieve is financial independence. You're not trying to impress the Joneses. You're not trying to keep up with the Combses, as Puff Daddy said at one point. No, it's fun to watch these people, I guess. I'm not into celebrity, but don't try to emulate them. Try to emulate people that you rarely hear about, like Warren Buffett, okay, or Peter Schiff, or Peter Thiel. Try to emulate these people. Those are the ones that you want to take a look at. Last time I saw Warren Buffett driving, it was some old car, like a Cadillac. It was probably as old as the car I have. But then you look at his portfolio, okay? That's where you need to be looking. So these individuals, let me leave you with this. This is very important. Now, I'm going to say this on this video, and I'm going to say it on other videos. My company has a contract now with a major insurer that everybody would recognize, and we're helping seniors, plan out their Medicare Advantage plans. And I'm going to tell you, we run into so many seniors who cannot afford important drugs. I'm not talking about hair loss stuff. I'm talking about important, vital drugs. They cannot afford them because they're reliant on Social Security, and either they've outlived their money or they never were good at investing and getting their money to work in the first place. Okay? I don't want you to be like that. So we'll talk more about this, but follow those tips. Shun materialism. Get that money working for you. Make sure, to the extent that you can, you are getting all the money you can get off of the table. If your employer is matching, take the money. Okay, take it up to as high a percentage as they match. Okay, try to stay as liquid as possible. I know what this sounds like. Oh, I'm going to be coming out of my pocket with a lot of money on getting my money working for me, but it's still your money. Okay, if you go out there and buy the latest car or the pendant that Beyonce had around her neck, let's say you buy it on credit, then it's not yours. You possess it, you don't own it, and it's not an asset. It's taking money out of your pocket instead of putting money in. Guys, I will talk to you soon.